the Continental Classic 2024. It was promised and it has been delivered. It's starting this week and we have everything set up. Tony Khan said that we would actually get a selection Sunday. That we would get a selection Sunday after the Full Gear show this Saturday. He dusted himself off. I think it was at the presser. It doesn't matter when he said it. He said, "Oh, we're going to release the selection show, the reveal on Sunday the 24th." Well, he revealed it a full 90 minutes before the end of the Sunday. So at 10:30 p.m. Eastern, we were treated to the selection show, and we got the whole field. We have the whole field, and days before the Continental Classic begins, a full 3 days before it begins. Now, look, I'm not going to be too snarky. I'm not going to be snarky about it because I believe in positive reinforcement. I believe if anyone from AEW is listening to this, I want to tell you, I'm proud of you. You know, last year I was extremely disappointed that the reveal was a rushed ordeal, okay, and that it was just like thrown. It wasn't thrown together, but it was thrown out to us just a couple of hours before Dynamite, before the start of the actual Continental Classic, and that disappointed me. So this year, if we're getting it 3 days ahead of time, I'm not going to complain. We have time to sit down, crack our knuckles, get ourselves a good, solid preview show. Because this is the kind of stuff I like. This is the kind of stuff I'm really into. All right. The sports aspect of it, the breaking stuff down, the looking at match possibilities, and this is cool. And for the next couple of weeks, I'm going to enjoy this. I know I'm going to enjoy it because I enjoy doing it for the G1, and I do daily G1. I do daily G1 stuff for that. This is the kind of stuff I'm into. This feels like pro wrestling to me. So now we're gonna have ourselves a good time, and I'm not gonna get snarky because it's like I wrote an article I was going to say last year, but it really was at the start of this year. But recapping the entire 2023 Continental Classic. And in it, like I mentioned, and I understand this, right? I talked about the fact that Tony Khan's, his decision to release the leagues, the blocks, the day of the first day of the tournament was disappointing, but I also understand that, the difference between the comparison between hey Floman, nice to see you, welcome to the thing, the stream that we're doing here. Floman, member of the MrWarrenHayes show channel for 32 months, is here for the Warren bracket breakdown. Yeah, brother. You got me flexing now. Thank you for being here. It's unfair to compare the time. It's unfair to compare the G1 to the C2 because New Japan basically, starts announcing who's going to be on in the G1 tournament, and that's their entire following tour, right? That's what they have to hype up. That's what they have to get to, and they don't have television to fill up in the meantime, right? Whereas Tony Khan has to fill up weekly television, and he's got Full Gear coming up, and he wants to keep people focused on Full Gear. So the fact that he announced that the Continental Classic was starting during the build to Full Gear was smart. And I understand that, it's a little trickier than, like, he can't start hyping for weeks on end beforehand because he knows it'll distract from Full Gear. And I think that makes sense. So, will it get better than just 3 days in advance? Probably not. And I think this is just because it's just the reality. You can't compare it with how New Japan does it, where they, like I said, they start building this on the end of the other tour, towards the end of the other tour, because the next tour is exclusively the G1. They've got some time off. They do the press conference. I would love a press conference, not gonna lie, but beggars can be choosers. We can't have everything all at once. But nonetheless, this is where we are. It makes for some good content. I'm excited to get into this. The Blue League this year is going to be made up of Kazuchika Okada, who is of course currently the Continental Champion. In the Blue League, joining Okada will be Kyle Fletcher, Daniel Garcia, Mark Briscoe, Shelton Benjamin, and the Beast Mortos. Ooh. In the Gold League, we've got Darby Allin, Claudio Castagnoli, Will Ospreay, Ricochet, Brody King, and Juice Robinson. This, of course, is following the round robin style tournament where everyone within the tournament wrestles everyone once. The person who has the most points will win the block. Scoring system is 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw, and no points if you lose. Matches have a 20-minute time limit, and there is no ringside interference allowed, ensuring that this is true, no nonsense, clean finishes, up and down and all around. That's probably one of the biggest attractions in regards to this. So this is how it's all laid out. Of course, starting this week on Dynamite on November 27th. So let's so this is it's okay. Before, I think we'll start by talking about the guys who are in the tournament. Then maybe we'll talk about structure and all of that, and this, maybe more than nitty gritty. But I think what everyone's excited about is who's in the Continental Classic. Look, I take both of these blocks. I look at them and I'm like, this is good. You have to be extremely. I sincerely feel this. You have to be extremely nitpicky to look at, either of this, the entire Continental Classic or blocks and go, I'm not so sure. I'm not, like, these are really good blocks filled with hard workers who will understand the assignment. And what is the assignment? To go out there and have some tremendous pro wrestling matches, right? These are people who will all understand how this goes. And the blocks are pretty good. Like, I have a natural little penchant for Blue League, right? I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff happening in Blue League that we'll talk about in a second or two. But Gold League is tremendous. Like, I don't know if there's one that I outright can say I prefer this one, right? If I remember correctly, last year, I think Blue League was the one where I was like, yeah, this rules, right? I think, I don't quite remember, but I feel like that's the one that I was like, yeah, no, this is the one here. Whereas this year, I think they both hold their weight. They're both incredibly solid, and I don't have any issues with anyone in this. There's just capacity, possibility for all sorts of different matches and meetups and things that maybe Tony Khan wouldn't book on his own, but that we're going to get to see here. As Chad is saying, there are no layups in this tournament. I was going to use the term scrubs. There are no scrubs in this tournament. However, we can talk about snubs because I think that, I think there's a couple of names that fans expected to see there. Chat, let me know if you think about who you feel has been snubbed from this tournament, and also leave a like on this stream and put it out there if you want to, get more people excited about the C2. But so some snubs. Who do we feel has been left out here? And I think the one that comes I feel everyone agrees on. That is someone that should have been in here, or at least that people were expecting. It's Konosuke Takeshita. I think Takeshita not being in here is a little not strange, but a little disappointing. Not strange because I understand why he's not in there. I understand why they didn't add Takeshita, because he's the international champion. Plus, he's got some pretty big matches coming up in New Japan. Like, this guy is kind of this guy is kind of set, right? He's kind of set. I think he'll be good for not being in the tournament. He's going to be having 2 high-profile matches in the Tokyo Dome this year. It's a fair trade-off for the dude, right? But he would have been absolutely at home here. Then again, maybe he was like, hey, you know what? No, I don't want to do this because I actually did a G1 tour this year. I'm good. Thank you. It was like, maybe there's also that as well. Or maybe Tony was like, well, you know what? You did. I let you go to Japan to do the thing. We're good now. Right? Let's take a little break. There's all sorts of, logical connections you can make as to why Takeshita's not in this C2. I think that's fine. I think it's okay. I think Tomohiro Ishii not being in it is weird. I had actually called that. I was convinced he was going to be in the C2, but I should have known. It should have come to me that once it was sort of set that he was going to fight Chris Jericho on the 27th, the same night as the start of the Continental Classic, that it should have come to me. There was, he's not going to be in the C2, right? And they'll probably want him back. They being New Japan, they'll probably want him back for the last leg of the tour before heading into Wrestle Kingdom as well. So I was hype at the idea of having a New Japan guy in a G1 style setting, and it's Tomohiro Ishii, who is like, a consistently great worker, one of the shining MVPs of the G1 Climax overall, like not just specific G1s, like the G1 in and about itself. Yeah, so is it a snub? Well, kind of to me. It's a snub to me, damn it. It's a snub to me. A lot of people were talking about Jay White as well. And a lot of people were talking about Hangman Adam Page as well. There was a couple of folks, I saw that going around, but I don't know if you were paying attention or not, though. At the end, you probably were, but they have plans for Hanger and Jay White. Big plans. There's a really big rumor going around. Well, it was going around before Full Gear, before Christian Cage and Hangman Page and Jay White all ran in at the end of the main event. There was a big rumor that the main event of World's End was going to be a 4-way for the world title between Mox, Hangman Page, Christian Cage, and Jay White. With what happened at Full Gear, I would say that's coming together. I would say that's the thing. So they just plain out have other plans for these folks, and well, so be it. But you can still make the argument. You can still make the argument that there's that they're snubs, that they've been snubbed, but it's not as if they have nothing for them. It's not as if they have nothing for them. They still have they have a substantial main event situation developing for all of those guys. Let's see here. Shout out to 2023 C2 Dark Horse Andrade, pulling for him to win and become the next 2-time Elon Belt champion. Hey, you only wish the best for speed division pillar Andrade Cien Almas. Jay White was a snub. Yeah, Buddy Matthews was a snub. You know what? It would have been pretty rad to have Buddy in there. I agree. I think it was good. Austin Gunn. Juice is there to eat pins. He's a scrub. I don't think Juice is a scrub. He's there to eat pins for sure. Juice Robinson a scrub? I don't know about that. Roderick Strong would have been a good add to Keshta too, but he would have had to eat pins, and yeah, and that's kind of the thing too, right? That's the one thing that everyone forgets. It's like they want their favorites to get in there and then have like have a clean, a clean, lossless tournament. But most of the time, that's not what happens. Most of the time, they're going to eat one or two losses. So not everyone is going to have the 2023 Sonata run, is my point. Ishii wasn't in the G1 either. I think his time in tournaments like this might be very limited at this stage of his career. Correct. I agree. But like the C2 is, let's be honest at the same time, it's not as grueling as the G1 is. The G1 with the travel, the wrestling every 2 days. There's the wrestling 9 matches in a really short period with just no rest at all. Whereas this, it's your regular, it's a regular Dynamite schedule. You wrestle once a week. I'm not sure I'd put any champions in it. Sure, I'm with you on that. I think it weakens the case for certain people. Well, for champions if they're put in the, which is why it weakens the case for champions winning these types of tournaments, in my opinion. Which is why I loved your idea about they snubbed me. Oh, no, that's fine. I would have just eaten pins. It wouldn't have been great. Which is why I loved your idea about Garcia much better than what they've done. Look, I mean, I would have really liked my idea to come to fruition, not going to lie. Which was, by the way, for those of you who weren't privy to it, I would have had Daniel Garcia lose to Jack Perry at Full Gear, but then come into the G1 and win the whole thing by defeating Kazuchika Okada. Having his redemption arc basically come to a close from last year's G1 and his identity crisis that he had been on, figuring out whether, he's a pro wrestler or a sports entertainer and all of that, and just wrapping that up with a nice little bow. That's what I would have done. But look, he's coming in with the TNT title. He's probably, we'll talk about it in a second, he'll probably get more wins, but I'm not so sure about the winning part anymore. Why would you still need Ishii when you have 2015 Noah Global League finalist Shelton X Benjamin? If he comes out referring to himself as Shelton X Benjamin, I officially want him to win. That is the plain truth. So my issue there is that then they're telling us that this tournament is not as important as the world title, kayfabe wise. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I don't adhere to that. I don't like, and I don't know why people get upset about it. There's just have a tournament where guys and gals are fighting for a prize, and the prize is a belt that is currently that has only had 2 people hold it right now. A guy who fought tooth and nail for it, and another guy who was arguably one of the greatest wrestlers to ever do it. I don't know what the big issue is. I don't know. I would say it's kind of refreshing to have a tournament that doesn't end with, oh, it should be for a title shot. No, I think it's fine. I think it's actually good. A little self-contained thing that's all about the wrestling. And then this also creates an identity for the Continental Crown. I still call it that. The Continental Championship, where then it's like, hey, this is the sports based championship, right? This is the championship for, like, you don't want to call it the pure wrestling title, but you know what I mean. Like, the matches are still have the 20-minute time limit, even if when defending. Isn't the no interference rule still in effect? Like the rules of the Continental Classic follow the Continental Championship. So honestly, I don't have an issue with it. And here's another thing. Why not have a tournament that will help you build a contender or just a new guy, not necessarily a world title contender, but a guy that you can elevate, that you can bring up to another level, that you can just do something great for their career, for the fans at the same time, if they're someone that the fans really like, and just have them go off and be, just have a great year and then sneakily get into the world title picture, right? I mean, Swerve Strickland last year lost the Continental Classic, and he did fine afterwards. He was absolutely fine, Eddie Kingston, well, he lost all his titles and he got injured. Well, the injury part is not on him, right? But you know. So when you take a look at both leagues, well, first of all, within the people that joined us, there are, I believe, 4 individuals, right, who are entering the tournament for the second time. It is 4, right? Yes, Warren, it's 4. You have it right there in your notes. Brody King, Claudio Castagnoli, Daniel Garcia, and Mark Briscoe. I enjoy the idea of having people come back. I like the idea of, tournament regulars. Makes sense to me. Want to try again. Want to get in on it one more time. Makes a lot of sense. I kind of like that. But I think one of the most interesting stories here is the amount of first-time matches that are going to be gracing our screens. If we look at the Gold League right now, we have 6 first-time matches that will be happening right before our eyes. And we're talking first time, never happened before. Darby Allin versus Ricochet, Will Ospreay versus Darby Allin, Will Ospreay versus Brody King, Ricochet versus Brody King, Juice Robinson versus Ricochet, and Juice Robinson versus Brody King. So there's already some really interesting stuff to, there's really already some interesting stuff to look into here. Now, the Blue League is essentially all made up of first-time matches. Like that's essentially, I believe, there's only 8 matches within Blue League that have happened at least once before. Everything else is a new match. And most of these matches surround Kazuchika Okada and Shelton Benjamin. Shelton Benjamin is fighting everyone in the Blue League for the first time in his career. Daniel Garcia, Mark Briscoe, Mortos, Okada, Kyle Fletcher. These are all first-time matches. That's cool as hell. Okada's fighting Daniel Garcia for the first time. Mark Briscoe for the first time. Beast Mortos for the first time. Again, all really cool. Kyle Fletcher, he's got Daniel Garcia. He's got the Beast Mortos as well. Daniel Garcia's never fought Mark Briscoe. That's going to happen for the first time as well. And Shelton Benjamin, Beast Mortos. I mean, listen, like I said, Shelton Benjamin is fighting everyone for the first time here. But if you're not circling that match in your notes, in your calendar, in your planner, if you're not waiting with bated breath for the day Tony Khan announces the date on which that happens, that's the kind of thing where the day it happens, you sort of have to start canceling what you'd planned. You're like, oh, shit, I had to go to the dentist. I had to I had to go get my hair cut. I had to get married. Like, these are things that you have to move for Beast Mortos versus Shelton Benjamin. 11 first-time matches in the Blue League. 11 first-time matches. That, I think it's worth its weight in it's worth its weight in gold. Why did I struggle with that? The Blue League, if only on that level. I think that's what makes it. I think that's what makes it really, really interesting to me. I think that's what makes it interesting to me, the Blue League, and I think that's why I sort of keel over a little more onto that side. I think because all of these, I'm all for first time matches. It's going to be great. I'm super excited about it. So those are the block makeups. A few stats here and there. I was looking at the win-loss records of everyone here. Ricochet holds 17 wins career over Claudio Castagnoli. Did you know that? 17 career wins. Claudio has 3 on him. These are the gentlemen who have fought each other the most in singles competition in gold block league. I still have trouble not calling it block. Well, we'll get there. So that's interesting there. Brody King has a lifetime. Brody King and Darby Allin have from what I could gather, fought 6 times over their career, not just in AEW. Brody King holds 4 wins, lost twice to Darby, and has a draw. So Brody King coming in with the bigger record here between them both. And then, of course, you have the history between Will Ospreay and Ricochet, which Will Ospreay holds 1 win above Ricochet. Will is 5-4 and 1 draw. So Ricochet just 1 win behind. They're very, very close to tying up that record. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to work this into the tournament somewhere. That's some very interesting stats there. I don't know how much those will come into play, because it's usually something you can look to in the G1 climax to sort of measure and get, sort of give an impression. You're like, oh, well, this guy would be due. And I don't know how much it will be important, but, and, as far as Blue League, well, since, there's 11 first time matches, everyone else is has smatterings of matches with each other. It's everyone is 1-0, 0-1, 0-0. The other place is basically just it's all fresh. It's all fresh stuff. That's good stuff. What should we be looking for in this G1? I got some thoughts. I have some ideas. First and foremost, I think it is pretty undeniable to say that Will Ospreay is the odds-on favorite. And I'm going to go out on a limb. Wow. What a limb. Get ready. Will Ospreay is going to win the Continental Classic. And here's the why. Here's the reason why. He's not only is he the top contender, there is a solid argument to be made that he is the top guy in this company right now. And Will has this goodness about him where he really doesn't care whether he wins or loses, where he's able to, where he's going to, he likes putting other people over, especially when, it's people that he loves and that he's friends with and that he respects, so at some point, Will, you do have to win some matches and you do have to win some big ones. And I think winning this tournament would be absolutely winning the big one. Will is the most consistent performer they have. He delivers always great matches. And on top of that, tremendous promo. He is the feeling of what AEW should be. And I think him winning this tournament would be a good idea, if only for that. And look, Tony now is starting to call this tournament one of the greatest wrestling tournaments in the world and so on and so forth. He's starting to really put it over hard as this international great, prestigious tournament. Well, if you're going to have this be a prestigious tournament, you got to have the top tier wrestlers get the big wins on this one, right? you got to have a guy like Will Ospreay, who is known throughout the world, I don't even think it's arguable. I think he's the greatest pro wrestler on planet Earth right now. You have him win. You put him over. You didn't do it when he came in with the World Championship. You used some caution. You didn't want to rush into it. Maybe you should have, because the guy is over as hell. Maybe we start to try to rectify that a little bit. Have him win the tournament. Have him beat whoever. Okada, Fletcher. We'll talk about that in a second. But, I think look, you should crown the best in the world in this tournament. And if you want the C2 to feel like it's a gathering of the best in the world, right? Nothing against anyone else, but Will is indeed on another level. And I think it would be beneficial for his AEW run and for AEW and the C2 on top of that if he were to win. Like, I don't see a truly more compelling case. There's some good cases to make, and there are some people in here who, if they win, I wouldn't be mad. But I think that Will winning the whole shebang is absolutely the way to go. That's how you get your base juiced up. That's how you get people excited. You've got some and you've got some matches set up down the road. Why not put a little 20-minute time limit on Will matches? Have him have him run up against the clock. I think that would be good. I think that'd be good. So that's my pick. And I think that's what we have to, I think that's ultimately the way to go. I think that's how we land this one. Another thing that that I think we should look out for is how Kazuchika Okada is handled in this tournament. There is a lot of feelings about Kazuchika Okada since he entered AEW, and a lot of people feel that I hear a lot of talk about how Will Ospreay, try to change subject, Warren, get Will Ospreay out of your head. There's a lot of people who feel like Kazuchika Okada is a guy that since he's joined AEW has been treated sort of like a, comedy character, not exactly living up to the mantle that he has of being one of the greatest pro wrestlers of all time, which he quite arguably is. And that his allure has sort of faded away, right? What better place for him to get back into that saddle, Jack, is by going through the C2, having some great Okada matches, and maybe even winning it. I wouldn't be upset if Okada won it, right? But I think there's a bit of a what's the word I'm looking for? There's a bit of a rehabilitation that has to be done, I think, in regards to Kazuchika Okada's image. I don't think he's the guy who came into this company. He's not the same. And that's because he was in an angle with the Bucks, right? And they're all friends, don't get me wrong, and everything is fine. And he comes in and he does stuff and he pops his buddies, they do some funny comedy bits with him, but maybe it kind of eroded that Rainmaker mystique a little bit. And I can understand that maybe even he comes in, he's like, I want to do something different. I just don't want to come in and do the same thing that I've been doing in New Japan. I just want to try something out, right? And I think, he was surprisingly good at the funny bits, he had some great timing. He was entertaining overall. But maybe he did wear a little thin. Maybe it did erode a little bit at the mystique of Kazuchika Okada. And now that the Elite are gone, I think I would say they're dissolved unofficially. Like no one has come out to say the Elite no longer exists, but you can you can kind of feel like, especially after seeing Jack Perry this week on Full Gear, I don't think there's any associations there anymore. I think we're done. And kind of the same with Okada. I think he's on his own to do whatever he wants now. And he's also a guy that people want to cheer for. That's the other thing, right? He comes out, they do the coin drop. People get excited because it's fucking Kazuchika Okada. So maybe it's time to revisit the formula, to try something else. And I don't think there's a better spot to do that than in a tournament, a pro wrestling tournament in which he's fairly well known for at the same time, right? He's well known for these kind of things. So we'll see. We can argue whether or not winning the C2 will put him on par with Chono. That's a whole other discussion for another time. Something else to look out for, I believe, is Darby Allin's Gold League includes two of his biggest rivals, at least in AEW, at least one that he has incredible history with, and the other, well, that he's nonetheless has history with, maybe a little more recent. But look, we're talking about Brody King and Claudio Castagnoli here. His matches with Brody have all been sensational. These guys have incredible chemistry with each other, and they both legitimately bring the best out of the other guy. It's just tremendous. So the fact that we're going back to this well here is very exciting. And look, this is the kind of story that you get when you're able to just focus on the sports-based things instead of giving us these long-winded tales and twisting complex narratives. This is just a story of two guys who have been wrestling each other in memorable matches for the better part of their career, and they just, like I said, bring the best out of each other every time. So Darby will have Brody to contend with, but also Claudio, who's basically had his number over the past couple of months. Maybe this is sort of coming together to explain why Claudio got the win over him, why he had his number. Maybe Darby's going to get a win back here. But the idea that the idea here is that if Darby Allin has a road to get to the top of Gold League, it will have to be through two of his rivals. One longtime rival in which he has a very deep, rich history with, and another guy who is clearly positioned as his current antagonist, which is Claudio Castagnoli. And in both these cases, these have the potential to be tremendous matches. Well, actually, they will be tremendous matches because that's all they're able to have with Darby. Well, Darby is the two guys, and Darby is one guy of the three, and the two other guys having matches with Darby is what I'm saying. It's not like a triangle thing. It's more like a V. It's more like a V than a triangle. Darby's at the point of the V, and Brody's on one other end of the V, and Claudio's on the other. So that's what I mean. So I think we need to keep an eye out for that, and it's been hinted at multiple times on television, and there is a groundswell for this, but eventually, Darby is going to become AEW champion, like world champion. That's an inevitability at this point. And if you haven't recognized it yet, well, I don't know what to tell you. It's my pleasure to illuminate you. But that is absolutely his trajectory. Whether he wins it from Mox or from someone else, we can have that discussion. That's not a problem. The question we can ask ourselves here definitely is, does the road to the world championship begin here for Darby? Like, does it officially like kick off here? Because he's been on the side roads. He's been on the side roads. He's been driving, through the neighborhoods to get on the highway. He's on his way. He just hasn't gotten to the exit yet, or the on-ramp, I should say. So we're coming out. We might be coming out of this tournament saying to ourselves, yeah, okay, it's sort of feeling like Darby's time. And they've been messing around with Darby and Mox, right? Darby has it out for Jon Moxley, and their confrontation is inevitable. Is Darby the guy who's going to do it? Everyone has different opinions. And most of the time I hear talk about Hangman Adam Page. I hear talk about Will Ospreay as the guys who could potentially take the belt off of Jon Moxley. And then we never really hear about Darby. And yet Darby is, he's beloved by the AEW fan base. And he's been on this path for a while. Is this where we start the actual fast track? Are we, fast track? Do we get on the highway to the world championship at this point? It'll be interesting. Ricochet, I think, is also a highlight of this. I'm a little surprised that he was added in, but then again, I think he's a solid addition. Here's my take on it. Here's what I think. I think that Ricochet has a lot to prove in this tournament. I think he has a reputation as a top tier performer that has been recognized and well earned. But I think his AEW tenure hasn't been indicative of that position. I don't think it's been indicative of that. That he is indeed as good a wrestler as expected. I think his matches have been fine, pretty good in some circumstances. I think he's gotten better. He's improved tremendously, especially since, I say improved. Let me reword that. I think his matches have gotten better. He hasn't improved. He doesn't have to, you know what I mean? He's not starting from scratch and then it's like, oh, look at this kid improve. He's been steadily getting better. Particularly since the Kyle Fletcher match, which I really didn't care for. But then he comes around at Full Gear, and spoiler for those of you who didn't listen to my review yet, he delivers the most mediocre 3.5 star match I've seen in a long time. Listen to the review to fully understand what I mean by that. He just under-delivered in a spot where everyone was expecting him to deliver. So I feel that Ricochet has a lot to prove. He has a lot to prove to fans like myself. And I think he has a lot to, I think he might have a lot to prove to himself. I can't imagine that this guy who had the cushy WWE job, here's a guy who could have sat back and continue to have like little pushy pushes every, 4 to 5 months, for a month on TV, month and a half, and then lose at the pay-per-view, then disappear for a while, then come back, get another little, disappear off TV, then come back in 4 or 5 months and do a couple of other matches. I think he could have stayed in that, but I really do believe that one of the reasons he left is because he felt underutilized, underappreciated, and really did want to cement, I don't know how else to put it, but a legacy to remind people that, hey, you know what? Ricochet is one of those guys. That we're not going to sit around scratching our chins about Ricochet and going, well, Ricochet, what could have been? No, he doesn't want that for himself. You get that impression with him. I don't think you can't believe that he's satisfied with what he has going on here, right? You think he has to go, you think he has to get on top of things here, right? So I think he has the chance to rehabilitate himself, if you want to use that word, to reestablish himself, remind fans why he's considered to be one of the best. I don't think he's a guy who wins a tournament, but I think he's a guy who has a solid, he has a good record. And I think that it's the kind of run that even if he loses, if he has great matches throughout, that'll do wonders for him, well and above just winning matches or winning titles. This is what he needs to do. He needs to reestablish himself. I think that's what this is. Mark Briscoe and Daniel Garcia, I think they're both similarly on the same arc here, where they're trying to have some kind of redemption for last year's G1. They were C2, excuse me. They had a little slip there. I think they both had neither of them had good final records, right? They were both losing records, and but the stories they were telling last year made sense for that as well. Mark Briscoe was unfortunately still finding the story was that he was finding his feet as a singles competitor, and Dan Garcia, like we mentioned, was in his identity crisis. Now you come back a year later, Mark Briscoe has been Ring of Honor World Champion. Daniel Garcia is now the TNT Champion, is re-signed. He feels probably a lot more confident than he did last year. So they should do better than last year. Like they should. I talked earlier about, and on last week's streams and whatnot, and the MrWarrenHayes show and all of that, and the AEW Full Gear preview and the AEW Full Gear review. Like I talked about it everywhere, where I felt like the plan for Daniel Garcia was to lose against Jack Perry and then come in and win the Continental Classic this year to really like elevate him, get the push, defeating all these great guys, beating Kazuchika Okada in the finals, and then moving forward and just being like coming up as a true underdog spectacular. I think that could have been really, really fitting for him, and washing away in the meantime last year's G1 C2. Jesus, washing away last year's C2. That's clearly not what we're getting, and the fact that Garcia has a championship already, I think it weakens his case. I don't think his case to win the C2 is as strong as it was last year, or as strong as it would have been. Well, no, it's stronger than last year, excuse me, but it would have been a stronger case for him if he had come in without a singles championship. So I think that damages the case a little bit. I don't think Mark Briscoe is a guy who's going to win either. I don't think he's going to have, a remarkable final score either, I don't think. But he's going to work hard throughout the entire way. Like, the thing with Mark Briscoe that you can count on is that when it's time to go to work, he's going to go to work, and he's going to do everything in his power for everyone to get the for everyone watching to just have a great time. I think that's that's what's going to happen here. And then there's Kyle Fletcher. I think immediately out the gate, I talked about Beast Mortos versus Shelton Benjamin as a match that everyone needs to circle, right? But Okada versus Fletcher is the match I think everyone is zeroed in on. I think that like it's laser vision at this point. That's the one everyone wants to see at this point. All based off of that tremendous performance that he delivered, he being Kyle Fletcher, this weekend at Full Gear. And clearly a guy who's being poised for great things. It would behoove Kyle Fletcher to get into the ring with Kazuchika Okada and tear the house down And we don't even have to wait for finals for this. This is going to be a match in the Blue League. And the only probable outcome here is that it continues to establish Kyle Fletcher as a top guy. I think if Kyle Fletcher meets Okada in the Blue League, here's how I do it. I do it on the last night of league competition. I do it on the last night. And I do it on the last night where Okada and Fletcher are tied for points or in the semifinals. We don't know exactly if they're doing block finals, right? We don't know if that wasn't announced. So are they just doing, I'll address this later, but I'm just pulling it up here because it's part of my thought process here. Are we doing block finals like we did last year, where the two top scorers fight to determine the winner of the league? I'm saying blocks, but you know what I'm saying. And then those two move on to the finals. Or are we doing just straight up the top winners of both sides? The top point scorers move on to the finals. Very in a very like what the G1, at least in the 2010s and whatnot, what the G1 used to be, right? And I'm sort of looking. I looked at the schedule and I'm like, well, it's probably that, right? It has to be that. But look, right now we don't know what it is. But whatever situation we end up in, I think Okada has a great C2, blows through everyone, just like, he's a weed whacker and he's just like slicing everything up perfect until the very last night where he has to fight Kyle Fletcher. And Kyle Fletcher comes in and spoils Okada's tournament. And that would be such a tremendous piece of business. That would be some bold booking. And I wouldn't think that AEW would really side with bold booking. But on Full Gear this weekend, there were a couple of very bold decisions that they did with their booking, including Jay White beating Hangman Adam Page again. Like, this is all. So I'm kind of like, maybe they'd have the guts to do that. Maybe they do it, and they should do it. But there's a little apprehension. I still can't go all in on this type of booking scenario because AEW struggles with the follow-ups to wrestlers scoring big wins. They really do. You get the big win, and then the follow-up to that is, look, just off, Ricky Starks, Orange Cassidy, like just the two off the top of my head. Guys who were poised to be elevated, cracked the ceiling, and somehow drifted back down to where they were, despite the fact that the audience was ready, everyone was ready, the vibe was good, and somehow it didn't quite work out that way. It's strange to me. So now instead you get but in this circumstance here where you have and Takeshita beating Kenny, that's also a very good point. It took them a while to come back around to Takeshita, right? So do they drop the ball with Fletcher here? And I hope they don't, because I really do think they have something special with Kyle Fletcher. And he's rising to the occasion. Like, it's not just a question of the company's getting behind them and we're going to push them and you're going to have to deal with it. Fletcher is delivering and over delivering. He is pouring his heart out into this. He understands the spot that he's in. So he's like, look, I gotta deliver. I gotta over deliver. This is my spot. This is my time. So it's not as if he's just sitting around and letting it happen. He's also working hard at it as well. So I would pray that this is what we do with Fletcher moving forward. That he goes into the C2. I was going to say G1, corrected myself. That he goes into the C2 and beats Okada in a way that it spoils Okada's tournament and Fletcher moves on. Look, he's a future star. We've been seeing it for years. We all knew he had the tools. The question had always been, that's often what a lot of us mean when we talk about up and coming wrestlers. We say this kid's going to be a star. Usually what we mean is the kid has all the tools. Now it's up to the kid and the booking, of course. But once that's out of the way, it's up to the kid to use the tools to put themselves over. They have the tools. They should be able to use them. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they do. And in the case of Fletcher, they are. So he has all the tools to be a top guy. We've said this, and he's putting it into practice. So why not just go all in on it and have him beat Kazuchika Okada and win Blue League to fight Will Ospreay again? Because then it starts to make sense as to why Kyle Fletcher beat Ospreay at Full Gear, clean as a sheet. Then we come back around and they have a second match, and then Ospreay beats him. And then on top of that, it's for the Continental Classic, which I predict Will Ospreay is going to win. Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher in the finals. That's my prediction right there. And then what does that do? Sets us up for the rubber match, probably to put on the Australia show, which apparently is going to have to change venues because they're not selling enough tickets for whatever stadium that they had, the Suncorp Stadium or whatever it was. Apparently they might be looking to move venues. Smart. But you do that for the Australia show, right? You have your rubber match there. It's a good plan. That's what I'm hoping for. These are all little things I'm looking out for. Shelton Benjamin is probably going to have some tremendous match. Look, I cannot wait for him and Beast Mortos. I cannot wait. Like, that's going to be, I think that low key is going to be a fun as hell match. I'm so excited for that. And Beast Mortos, as much as I like him, I think he's kind of there to eat some pins. That's kind of what he does, regardless, right? There's no big Beast Mortos push. He's not winning matches right and left. And that's what Juice is there for as well. And Juice is he's going to be perfect in this role. He's going to be perfect. Because he's a guy who can work and he knows what to do. He's going to do what needs to be done to put the other guys over. It's going to be tremendous. So those are kind of like the key points, I think, that we need to keep an eye out for. Some stories that we need to see how that are going to develop. This my gut feeling, some thoughts, some analysis, some predictions. I think this is how it's going to go. Now we know what the tournament schedule is. As we've said it more than enough at this point. This Wednesday, November 27, starting with Dynamite and Collision, because there's tapings. There's Dynamite and Collision tapings this week. So the Collision tapings will air this Saturday. Then December 4th, Dynamite. December 7th, Collision, both live. Another live Dynamite on December 11th. Then on December 12th, we have more Collision tapings to be aired that weekend, that Saturday. December 18 will be a live Dynamite. December 21st will be the Collision from the Hammerstein. And that one's going to be live. But then on December 22nd, which is the Sunday, there's going to be a Dynamite there in Hammerstein, and that's going to be the Dynamite taping that's going to air on Christmas Day, Christmas on 34th Street, what they're calling it, right? And that's the Dynamite that's going to be airing on Christmas Day, and it just so happens that after that, the only event in the C2 that follows the Christmas Day taping is World's End on December 28th. So that all means that the finals of the C2 are going to be taped, and the spoilers are probably going to be out there for 3 days up until we get to Christmas Day. So that's going to be a challenge. So we are going to know likely, well, there's no likely, it has to be that once we hit December 22nd, the Sunday, we're going to know it's going to be out there who makes it to the finals of World's End. That's going to be a bit of a challenge. And I wonder how it's going to impact my overall appreciation for the G1, right? If there are tapings, if there's stuff that's not happening live, especially the block winners being revealed, I don't know. I'm going to do my best to stay away from them, but sometimes it's really friggin' hard. Sometimes it's going to be really, really hard. I don't know how we're going to do this. And is that going to impact my appreciation of it? Am I going to be less stoked? Because in the meantime, we've got two collision tapings on the meantime, right? You got to think that they're going to keep their big matches for the live shows, right? You're going to think that the bigger attraction matches are going to be done live and that we're not going to just relegate them to tapings and risk the legitimately spoiling everything, right? So we'll have to see how that goes. But yeah, I mean, that's going to be real tricky. That's going to be a legitimate tricky one. And I think this would all be so much better if we just had like the overall schedule and the structure, right? Because like we talked about just a few moments ago, when I say we, I mean me. What are we doing with the finals? Are we doing block finals like last year, where the top 2 points earners face off each other, and those guys go to the finals? Or are we just doing the top point earners? Because I kind of look at the schedule and I don't know how they'd fit in this schedule here this year. I don't know how they fit in block finals or league finals, excuse me, before moving on, right? I kind of have a vibe that it's going to be the top 2 point earners who are going to move on to the finals, which is what it should be. You don't necessarily have to make it more complicated than that. I wish we had the full portrait of the structure. I wish we had we have the dates, but I wish we had like the schedule, like who's fighting when, where. But it's going to be drip fed, right? And at some point, like I heard rumors that you had like about 8 guys who were set for the tournament, like who were that were started getting leaked in certain corners of the internet a couple of weeks ago, but that the full field didn't come together until Sunday afternoon, which is kind of preposterous, right? And I'm like, is this how you book a tournament? Because I feel like if I'm booking a round robin tournament, this is me having never booked a professional wrestling match in my life here, but I feel that if I'm booking a tournament, I need my guys in front of me. I need to know the players. I need to know who's going in here. And then from there, I plan everything out. And because everything has to be planned out. You have to have a plan. You can't do fly by night booking here because you might fuck things up. Like that's the great thing of a tournament, is that you plan out your best case scenario and then you plan out a plan B if people start getting hurt. Like that's just how it goes. But I'm looking at if I'm sitting down to plan this out and I only have 8 guys and the rest are TBD, I don't know how you can do this properly. Now I can only assume that this tournament is already set up. We already, like in the hierarchy of AEW, the people who need to know who's going to win, who's heading to the end. You have to assume they already know. They have to know who's finishing where and whatnot because it's a tournament. You plan all of this out at once. So in that respect, I don't know why we can't get the schedule. I just don't know why we can't get the schedule, and keep the last night obfuscated if you want, right? Because the last night is usually it's usually indicative of things. You can usually read those tea leaves to try and figure out, well, who's going to be where, who on the card, and what are going to be the stakes. That's usually how you can. That's usually how you can start figuring out how things are going to go. So you can obfuscate the last night. I'm okay with that, but spread out everything. Make us understand who's fighting where when, and I'm kind of assuming here that if you set a date for Kazuchika Okada versus Kyle Fletcher, or if you set a date for Will Ospreay versus Darby Allin, I think those two matches have a potential to draw. I think those are matches that have a potential to get people excited, to at the very least travel for that kind of show. I think so. And so you just put it in the calendar, and then people are like, holy shit, Allen versus Ospreay is happening in my hometown. Or, man, it's just a 2-hour drive to get to wherever it is. I'm buying a ticket and I'm going because I'm going to see Okada versus Fletcher for the first time, and it's going to rule. As if not putting those matches out there, again, sort of, it boggles my mind and it sort of rattles the cage in my brain. I'm like, well, AEW needs to find every possible way for them to generate ticket sales. And these are matches that have a potential to draw. Don't keep them close to your chest. Put them out there. Schedule things in advance. Let people plan. Let people buy these tickets for other people for the holidays or whatever. An advanced Christmas gift. It's the kind of stuff that it boggles my mind that AEW doesn't work harder, or not work harder, but doesn't consider more. And yes, that's right. Kazuchika Okada and I forgot about that. It did happen. Okada and Fletcher did happen earlier this year and was actually quite good. So imagine now. So there you go. I mean, I think we've gone through everything that we can go through at this point. Two great fields. There's nothing but great workers in this that all understand the mission. Like I said, I'm excited for this edition. I think it has the potential to really have some great matches, and I'll be excited to see how the audience response is to it as well. Last year, the Continental Classic was an absolute critical success, but also a rating success at the same time. I covered it in my wrap-up article over in Voices of Wrestling. You can go check that out. Got all the ratings talk and all and everything, right? So it was a success. That's why Tony's doing it again this year. Of course, it was a success. Has the potential to be an even bigger success this year. So with this feel that they have in here, I'm excited. I was excited last year because I like the round robin tournaments. I love tournament wrestling. I think it's great. So I was down for it to have, a North American G1. I was excited for it. But this year, I think the field is even better. I think the field is better than last year. C2, baby. Get into it. Get into it.